Greetings! Today we discuss our version of Paranoid Android by Radiohead. I don't remember what else we talked about in this episode. On this episode of Big Host Invents the Podcast! Hey! Eureka!
Ahoy, boogers! Welcome back to today's episode of Bear Ghost Invents the Podcast. This is a podcast where we plunge into the who's its and what's its galore of the inner workings in Bear Ghost. So do me a favor, stop doing what you're doing. If you're driving, slam on the brakes and listen to this episode because this is important. I got all the gang with me. I got drummer Buttons.
What's up?
I got bass player Do. I got Tigbot.
Hello.
That was quick.
Who are you?
Did I not say my name?
No.
Oh, I'm Ryan. I play guitar.
Someone asked the other day why you don't say that you sing. You just say you play guitar.
I get it.
I get it too. I'm just giving you the
I don't know. I don't
opportunity to
actually.
speak to it.
And I didn't mean that in an insulting way, which
no.
it might have come across.
It didn't
but-
feel insulting because
I mean, you're not really a singer.
The older you get, the faster your life goes by. And now I've been singing for a long time. But even once we started Bear Ghost, I was not a singer, as we've talked about on previous episodes. So I still don't fancy myself a singer, whereas I've been playing guitar since I was 13 years old. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell by listening to me play. So it definitely feels like I am a guitarist. And there are phenomenal singers out there that might hear me call myself a singer and be like, oh, you think so, sir?
Well,
So-
then they're
Yeah. Well, it's true. They're out there. Dicks ahoy, good sirs. What have you guys been up to? Anything cool? Anything fun?
Yeah, we're on tour right
We're
now.
on tour.
Oh, yeah. We just sold out a show at Jackie Chan's house.
6 in a row, actually.
He's like, please get out. But you guys love my Jackie Chan impression. Jackie Chan, national American treasure. And very kind. And his house is a fantastic place to play at. Anyways, today we are going into our cover of Paranoid Android.
what? What do you mean?
We didn't write it, Tigbot. It's not about you.
Okay.
This was famous Radiohead. This is an interesting episode. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes for this episode, and it looks like everything I have to say is incredibly negative. And I'd like to bring some sort of levity to the episode. So I'm going to play this song in the background for the whole episode. Okay, bye. Okay, so first of all, let me just kind of say, we don't necessarily record these episodes in order, especially the covers. So this episode was recorded, I don't know, the week before this comes out, whereas previously, the Bark Skimson episode, we recorded that literally the day the very first episode aired. And the reason is we already had Jiminy written, so we were coming into bank episodes, and now we're doing Radiohead. And when we do covers, we don't have them done a lot of the time, so we had to kind of move those out so that we could finish it. And there's a certain turnaround time from start to finish with the covers. This cover was a
Slog.
I was going to say a challenge, a friendly challenge. I would say my normal turnaround time when I start working on a cover, all the way from beginning to transcribe and coming up with my ideas until a finished product in the studio, is like 9 to 10 days. This one took 2.5 months. Now, granted, I wasn't working on it the entire time, but it would be very much just like, well, this week I'm going to knock out Paranoid Android, guys, and then I would start a take on it and be like, I've got nothing. I have to switch gears and move on to a new song. So I would just switch to another song and do a cover of that, and then after that was done, I'd be like, okay, cool, now I can relax and work on Paranoid Android and just nothing.
The irony
Yeah,
of that.
this-
Yeah.
This was probably the most difficult cover we've done in terms of like arranging it and putting it together.
Oh yeah, I got things.
Yeah. So many different things that were tried and were scrapped because they just did not work.
This is one of those things where like literally everything that could go wrong, and I mean every minuscule, minute thing that could go wrong when trying to write the song or having an idea went wrong. And I'm not saying that the song's difficult to learn. I transcribed the whole thing in less than an hour, but then trying to come up with a take on it that worked in any fashion was just not going to happen. And I got a little bit in my head about it because this was one of the Kickstarter submissions, and we'll talk about the person who provided the money there in a second. But like getting in my head, like, well, what do they want? What do they expect out of this? And then I'm like, no, I just got to do what we would always do. That's the way it's always worked for us. But turned out I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. So anyway, so let's back up here. We can talk about who gave us the Kickstarter idea and maybe our general thoughts about Radiohead before going into this Greek tragedy that is the writing of our version of Paranoid Android.
This was submitted by a person named Chris, who, as I understand it, purchased the Kickstarter song and request for his son,
who is in our Discord.
I was going to say, what happened?
Up until recently went by Kelton, but when I asked him how they wanted to be credited for this, he said Chris and Captain Kelton, and then changed his name to Captain Kelton, and I couldn't figure out why until just a few minutes ago, actually, where I was like, I wonder if he's doing that as like a joke to John Commander. Because John Commander and Captain Kelton.
Oh, I wonder.
Yeah. If so, that's very clever.
That is very clever. Are you in cahoots with John Commander? Should we give Captain Kelton a call?
Or should we call John Commander and ask him?
Oh, that
guy. Okay, so a weird thing about getting this one, when the choices started rolling in from the people who had bought the covers, I was like, oh, Paranoid Android. That'll be fun. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Even though there was a part of me that's just like, covering Radiohead feels like blasphemy in a weird way. Like, because they're just one of the most influential bands of all time, and they're still so modern and current, and
they're good in, I don't want to say in a niche because it makes it sound like
they've become a niche band for sure.
But I mean, they're just good.
Yeah.
But they have a vibe and a sound that really works for them and doesn't necessarily work for other people.
And they'll change it up when they see fit as well.
Yeah, we were talking when we were trying to explore the possibilities for this cover, like you were looking at what other people had done to cover it to make sure we didn't cross over and anything like that.
I initially needed to get out of my head about what the song is. So I was just looking to see what other people had done, and I think there was a Sia cover of it, and she basically just took out all the instrumentation and did it all with like voices or something. I barely remember. This was so long ago at this point that I listened to that. And then other than that, I couldn't really, I was like hoping I'd find like a mariachi version that had been on Breaking Bad or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
so specific.
Well, because I discovered a lot of cool music watching Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul and heard a lot of interesting covers, you know? And so I was just like, I don't know, man, like there got to be something like this, but no. And I'll get to why there's no covers of this song, in my opinion, in a little bit. But Radiohead in general, do started talking about it. Like, what do you guys think about Radiohead? What about you, Buttons?
When I was in my wee lad days, was just one of those bands that I constantly heard growing up in Southern California. And I was in my metal phase. Anytime Radiohead came on, I just switched it. I'm like, dude, I'm so sick of this song. So that's how much they played it.
What version of Radiohead was it, though? So were you still hearing Creep at this time, or had they moved on to Just, or was it into the OK Computer days?
Creep, because...
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I think Radiohead felt the same way.
Yeah. So I didn't hate the band. You know, they just weren't...
Yeah, it's weird, because I went through a metalhead phase, too. Radiohead was never a band that I was like, no, they're not cool enough. That was one of the ones that got a pass, because they just...
By the way, no disrespect to Radiohead. I was
wondering why you're wearing your I Hate Radiohead shirt today.
I was just a dumb kid, you know.
He wears that all the time.
With a lot of angst and a lot of
toys.
A lot of toys.
I had skateboards and surfboards.
Just a kid with a lot of toys.
The metal thing that you bring up, though, is a really good point, because anybody who hasn't been through a metal phase, Ryan and I also had a metal phase, and you get to a point when you get to like the darkest corner of your metal phase, and anything that comes on that has clean vocals at all, anything that's not some kind of screaming or something, you're just like, what is this garbage? I don't want to listen to this crap.
It's so true. Let's talk about this metal phase thing for a second. I love metal, but metal is not my main genre. It's not even close to my main genre. I can do like one song. Now I needed like a reset. And don't get me wrong, I'll be jamming for that one song. Oh man, that sounded so old. I'll be jamming.
I was going to say, that reminds me of how I am with Deftones. A Deftones song will pop up on my shuffle, and I'm just like, oh man, I forgot about the Deftones. And I'll listen to Deftones.
And you're always like, why don't I listen to the Deftones more often?
But I'll listen to the Deftones for like a month straight, and I'll love it. But then I'll just hit a day where I'm like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. And I do not want to listen to the Deftones for a year after that.
You guys go through that too.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
There was this weird thing in metal, like a hierarchy of what was acceptable. When I was 15, right, Korn was my favorite band. I'm not here like standing on the mountain that Korn is a metal band. Korn was my favorite band. Avenged Sevenfold was my second favorite band. And Children of Bodom was my third favorite band. If you went to
strange that Children of Bodom made the top 3.
Dude, I was obsessed with Children of Bodom until we saw them open.
Understand?
Yeah, I still like them. It's very fun. But once we saw Gojira open for,
I know
Children of Bodom,
I was gonna say I'll listen to metal pretty sparingly now, unless it's Gojira, and then I can listen to them all day. I can listen to their discography.
If I find a metal band that sounds more like kind of like a punk atmosphere, like I don't know if you guys have heard of Baptists or anything like that, like that's shit really works for me. What was I saying? Okay, if I was at a Korn show and I was talking to somebody around me, which I never ever would,
Same.
And someone was like, what are your top 3 favorite bands? If I told somebody at a Korn show that my other favorite bands were Avenged Sevenfold and Children of Bodom, they would have been like, oh, that's cool, right? But if I were at an Avenged Sevenfold show, I could tell people that I like Children of Bodom and they would think it was cool, but Korn was off the table, right? If I was at Children of Bodom, I'm not allowed to like Korn or Avenged Sevenfold. So it was like, it was super
so
weird.
true.
Yeah. Once we started going to even heavier shows, it's just like, what, Children of Bodom? What is that? Is that for little babies?
Because everybody at Children of Bodom shows is from Finland.
Yeah, they're all from Finland. They're all eating a child. Like, they're brutal, man. I spent so far away from metal that now when I come in to hear like a new metal song and I'm just hearing these like halftime beats that are like literally halftime, but they have double bass that's like triple timed. Like,
Trying to fill all these notes in.
I love it. I love it so much. And now people are like learning the science behind growling. So there's all these interesting types of. I can't even think of all the names of. There are people out there that know it. Anyways, so do you Radiohead?
So Radiohead.
Do you Radiohead?
I do Radiohead. I did not really listen to music until I was almost in high school. I didn't like seek out bands and own CDs.
He was standing at the gates of his high school and he goes, now's the time. And he pushed play on his headset.
I didn't own any albums or any, like I had the Space Jam soundtrack, of course.
Who didn't?
I didn't.
I had,
Oh, really?
I had
Yeah.
To Be a Master. Remember that?
To be a master, Pokemon master.
Okay.
But I didn't listen to bands. So my introduction to Radiohead as an entity was actually in South Park. Scott Tenorman Must Die. Because his favorite band is Radiohead, and he's like crying at the end when Cartman ruins his life and kills his parents. Spoiler. And Radiohead shows up. They're just like, "We're that band, Radiohead. What's this little crybaby crying about?" So he has his like favorite band come up and just call him a cryberry.
Knowing
Cryberry.
knowing South Park, it probably was Tom York voicing Tom York.
Oh,
in
I think
that
it
show.
was.
Oh man, that's awesome. I love
But
that.
I never really got into Radiohead. Like I like them and I've had them on my shuffle and stuff, but I've never like sat down and listened to Radiohead unless I am having a anxiety attack. I like to travel, like I like to go places, but I hate the process of traveling. I don't like being in cars or on planes or in buses or whatever. It makes me really anxious. And the album I always put on to calm me down, and it works 100% of the time, is Kid A. Just chills me the fuck out when I'm having
That's-
anxiety attacks.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew all this stuff. I didn't know about the album. Oh, that's really interesting.
You know, now that I think about it, all my friends back in the day that listened to Radiohead,
Are dead?
God.
I'm not that old, Jesus. They were more artsy and more like
Cool.
reserved, and I was the total opposite, whatever, right?
Surfing, skateboarding.
Exactly, yeah.
Telling off Jamie
And
Foxx.
This is a real thing.
That's way later. That was like high school, but I'm talking about middle school. And we were still friends. Every time we were all having sleepovers or whatever, we're just hanging out. Every time a radio song come on, I'm like, dude, please change it to something else, man.
Here he
You
goes
know, like-
ripping on Radiohead again.
But now I understand. I think something about their music calmed them down.
So have you not come around to Radiohead since then?
I never did.
Oh,
Like, it
wow,
was just
dude.
full throttle, you know, just heavy
Hatred.
music and punk rock. And
Yeah, but I mean, Radiohead can be so punk rock, though.
well, now I'm curious because I want to go through all their catalogs.
My favorite album is one that people think is not a good Radiohead album.
Oh, Hail to the Thief.
Hail to the Thief, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember trying really hard to get into like King of Limbs, which is a super experimental record. And I'm all for experimentation, but I'm just like, I can't listen to this though. Like I can have it on in the background while I'm like sawing someone's leg off or something. That's what it feels like it's supposed to be, like just background
Because
music.
of King of Limbs?
Yeah,
Is that one?
exactly.
Okay.
It isn't like OK Computer to me, or even
Sure.
like The Bends or In Rainbows or my favorite Hail to the Thief.
When King of Limbs first came out,
We're about to find out that Tigbot is a huge Radiohead fan. Everybody, wait on bated breath.
so
Here it comes.
it was I
Oh my God,
kind
he's
of
gonna say it.
I'm a big Radiohead fan.
Oh my God! Oh!
I had sort of the same reservation at first. I was like, oh, a little too experimental. Now I think the album's freaking genius. I can listen to every song on it.
Mhm.
Same with the newest record too. Like it was tough to get into, especially coming right after In Rainbows, which is like
It's so beautiful.
it's like perfect. When I came back to it later and started listening to it more, I was like, no, this is every freaking song.
Yeah, I
so
do
good.
wonder.
Like,
Yeah, I literally haven't listened to King of Limbs since 2010.
The thing that captivated me about them was Just, and I know that was a big single and everything, but it wasn't.
That was
the-
one that we used to listen to at your house quite a bit.
It
When
wasn't
We
the-
would just be sitting on the computer watching music videos.
Well, and that's why I bring it up is because of the music video.
Mhm.
Because the whole thing is it's like that guy's like laying in the street and people are like tripping over him and everyone's just like, what the hell's this guy doing? And then in the bridge, when they're doing the guitar solo, he starts telling them why he's laying on the ground, and then it just cuts and everybody's laying on the ground. And for some reason, when I was a kid, I was just like, what did he say to them? I'm sure they didn't have anything scripted as to what he said and why all those people are laying on the ground, but for some reason that like fascinated me.
I could just list things that I like about and like the songs and why, but it's like it's not a Radiohead podcast. You know?
It's not a
just-
Radiohead podcast.
I don't want to nerd out too much.
And one would
you know?
argue, and I will, that we're better than Radiohead.
Are you suffering from owls keeping you up day and night? Are those dang owls swooping down, making off with your pets and voting Democrat? Are you incapable of enjoying a lazy Sunday because a bunch of owls keep delivering you a crap ton of mail even though there's no post on Sundays? Hi, I'm Bob Barr, and I'm here with the solution to keep those dangerous owls and other birds of prey from treading on you. Introducing Who? Not You, the owl repellent from the makers of Guns for Nuns. Here with me to explain our revolutionary design is some nerd who's a dangerous owl and other birds of prey expert. Go ahead, Mr. Nerd.
Thank you. Who, Not You, is purposely crafted to be easy to use. Just aim and spray. Just load our new 12-gauge canister into the Who, Not You nozzle. Activate the trigger and skazoom! Consider your owls repelled. Our product is 100% guaranteed to work the first time.
As long as your aim is good.
Bad aim? We've all been there. Sometimes dangerous owls resist and won't sit still long enough for you to spray repellent directly into their faces. But don't worry. Each Who, Not You canister is installed with our patented rat-a-tat sound wave and will scare off all the dangerous owls and other birds of prey. Our rat-a-tat sound wave can be loud, but if you act now and purchase the Who, Not You Deluxe, we'll throw in the Who, Not You silencer. Now you can stand your ground without scaring the neighbors.
Shut up, nerd. Order now and apply early, because there's a very rigorous background check. Unless there's a bird show in town, then you can just basically walk off the lot with one. Every home in America should have one to keep your family safe.
From owls.
Right, from owls. Apply today at nra.org, and we'll throw in a free band owl ear to keep your extra canisters on you and always ready to blast away a swoopin'.
Who? Not You. Now in semi-automatic.
Now, Captain Kelton and your father, who
Chris.
I think Tom York secretly paid for this cover because he's just like, if there's one band better than Radiohead,
Oh my
Jesus.
It's Bear Ghost.
and I was like, we'll prove you wrong. Thanks for the $1,000. So this is the hardest song that I've had to do. I ran into a wall with literally every part of the process, and I mean down to the micro detail, not like the grand scheme of writing and recording and mixing, but I mean every part I wrote.
I feel like this is such a great song and it's so wonderfully crafted, but it didn't feel like it was translating well to our style.
It's hard to make it translate at all. Anytime I would go and say, I'm going to work on this song, Radiohead would just ring my doorbell and pull down my little trousers and spank my little butt.
They do
and
that.
Yeah, and remind me that the song has so many ingenious things going on at a granular scale, between the way that the key fluctuates way more than you would think, and the way the rhythm of the melody interplays with timing of the chords and stuff, the way the music is at one tempo but the vocals are in like halftime. When trying to come up with a take for the song, I learned that it was like really hard to change any of the parts because you can't speed the vocals up to where you want because then the music is too fast. But if you try and slow the music down so that you can double time the vocals are just way too fast. The song even tricks you in an amazing way of thinking the song is in C minor when it starts out until it goes to the key change of G minor. That made it really hard to figure out what I wanted to do to write an intro. It made it hard to like stick to motifs and stuff like that. I don't need to tell you every idea that didn't work, but at first I tried doing like a bare moody version, sort of like Vulture, but my constant need for like exciting and frivolous movement in my songs makes it difficult for me to write a slow song. So I really couldn't complete that one. And then I tried like a riot punk version. I tried a surf version. I tried a waltz version. I went back to the Vulture version. And then I finally sat and like meditated on every little isolated motif in the song. I would split parts in half when I needed to and just be like, what is this? And then try and think about that part outside of everything else that was going on with it musically. And I tried to let any of those parts take me by themselves. When the song goes down to G minor, there's a bass line that does this do, 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 do thing. And to me, that by itself was like the most Bear Ghost-ass thing that I could wrap my head around. We frequently use like a similar cadence, but we usually climb up to the 5 and then flatten it. And they climb up to the 6 and flatten that, which to me was super interesting. And it felt very Super Mario Ghost House to me.
We were sitting after a practice one day trying to brainstorm things to do, and I kept telling him, I want to focus on this bass line. I want to focus on this bass line. And Ryan was like, It's only 4 seconds of the song. That doesn't take me anywhere. But then you got this ghost house idea.
And that is where everything started swirling. But like, you would think, okay, cool. Then he ran from there with it. No, you. You're an idiot. I didn't run. So I got to work on reharmonizing the chords to the melody, thinking solely about creating a ghost house level, and then landed on the idea of keeping that motif through the chorus. And then some things started clicking, but then it still wasn't smooth. Initially, I had really hunkered down and I wrote a fucking awesome Mario Ghost level theme.
Yeah. To the point where it was almost indistinguishable from a Mario Ghost level.
It was, I was very, very proud of it. I was super impressed with myself, to be honest. I was like, oh, I didn't know how I could do this. But then I was in another bind because I couldn't find a way to turn that into a Bear Ghost song. I didn't have like any rhythm section, or I didn't have any guitar. So then I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do it this way, I essentially have to write a cover of the cover I just wrote of Paranoid Android. And then I finally got a verse that I liked and a chorus that I sort of liked, but then I was like, what do I do for this intro? So I initially just had the verses playing as the intro the way they do, and it just didn't work. So I was like, I'm just going to write one out of whole cloth. Going off the Mario Ghost House thing, I was thinking of like Luigi's Mansion and kind of, just trying to like more
Luigi's Mansion.
More Ghost House stuff.
This is the song I think we've been the most worried about is going to be divisive amongst people. This was essentially a complete overhaul of the song, and it's probably the most liberties we've taken with a cover next to Bells, which is a musical number, essentially. We changed a lot. We changed almost everything about this song. This ended up just kind of being what worked for us and what kind of fit, and so sorry to the Discord person who was like, I can't wait for Ryan to do the entire guitar solo.
It was fun. So I'm not on the Discord, but my fiance every now and then, to like boost my morale, will send me like screenshots of, she's like, people are really excited about the Paranoid Android cover. Also, I love you and you're super handsome. So, aw, thank you. So then I'll read the screenshots. And there's one person who's like, I've never been more excited for a cover in my entire life, and I'll kill myself if they change anything about the cover and if Ryan doesn't do the guitar solo and he doesn't do the kill switch thing. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't do any of that.
I took all of it out.
Don't get me wrong. I like all the stuff that we did with it. I just don't think I was able to accurately put out what was eventually in my head correctly. And we've never put out a song that I wasn't happy with. And I'm not even saying I'm unhappy with it. I'm just saying that because every single version of this song was fraught, I just haven't come down from that.
Ultimately, the hard part is you're probably never going to find that exact satisfaction because the original song is so freaking good.
The original song is too good.
It's a vibe that I don't think we could match if we wanted to.
That was an immediate non-starter. I learned all the parts. The guitar isn't very difficult. The drums aren't very difficult. And Tom York, I think his vocals are probably harder than a lot of people out there think. Just these long, drawn-out melodies.
Even though it's not easy,
it sounds effortless.
Like apathetic almost.
Yep.
You know?
He has like a laziness to his voice while it's still beautiful. It's really difficult to pull off.
I was positive once I got to the riff part, there would be no issues whatsoever. That was a silly thought on my behalf. I was positive that once I got to the choir part, because of what my idea for the take was, that it was going to just fly out of me. Even like the bossa nova part, that part actually did come out of me really, really quickly. And I did love it, but then it was like, how do I transition into this riff? And Andrew and I had to like spend time brainstorming, and it was basically his idea, what I ended up going with. But he was just like, why don't you just big noisy bum bum? And then just do like a gross like, and I was like, and then just like go into the riff. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, fine, you. And then I did it, and I was like, oh, I guess that works.
I feel like 90% of my transition suggestions lately have been like, do a glitchy thing or do a bit crush. And
anytime I learn,
there's going to be more of them, so be ready for it.
Yeah. Literally anytime I learn how to do a new thing in my music production, that's what Andrew wants me to do from then on. He was just like, you can do this now. I know you can. So I tried to execute it in a way that made sense. But then even then, I got to the rain down part, and I had a very specific idea of what I wanted to do there. I was like, I'm going to cut out just the musical part, and we're going to do it at the same tempo that the whole song has been in. And we're just going to build the drums and build the drums and build the drums until we'll finally have like full guitar doing it underneath. It'll be lame.
Speaking of the rain down part, that was so difficult for us because you mentioned earlier how you like your songs to constantly move and constantly elevate. And After Me the Flood is so short because you didn't want to go
backwards.
You didn't want to go backwards in the song. So we like built it up, and you're like, there's nowhere to go. We just need to end this song.
Right.
So this song having a drop off, not only in dynamic and volume, but also in tempo, was so foreign to us.
Once I got all the layering done for this part, it became super clear that I'd left all the Ghost House theming from the first half of the song completely in the dustbin
you
of
went
history.
back and overhauled the
Yep.
whole bossa nova part again.
Yeah, so then I had to go and reharmonize all of his choir parts, trying to add in ghost layers that weren't just based off of the original motif of that climb that sparked the original idea. And then I was hesitant to change the choir part, so I had to write the new progression so that it would not change the overall like descending melody of the choir part, which doesn't even matter because in the mix it was so hard to mix all those vocals in with everything that you can barely tell that I'm still doing the same. You know, it was really tricky, and it made me wish I had any music education because I really feel like people could have been like, well, here's this and here's all your chords that can do that. These are your notes and these will work with everything. But instead it was like trial and error for me for the longest time. And then it was time for the big ending, which I wrote like the big musy riff for, but I couldn't decide on a rhythm. And then I wanted the rhythm to change halfway through, which it just didn't groove. So then I got into the studio and everything was ready. We recorded the song. I laid down a full choir for the bridge. And at the end of the day, I'm looking at Jeremy, our engineer, and I was like, this part is too fast. Like, there's not enough time to breathe from the riff beforehand, and it's too abrupt. So I went home and I spent all night writing a new tempo map that like dropped to a slow enough tempo for it to feel natural and right, and sped up at a clip that felt unnoticeable and gradually got to the tempo I wanted the song to be at. Went back into the studio the next day, re-recorded all of the choir parts again, much slower, all the vocals much slower, and we got there, but it was pulling teeth all the way through. And I'm in the studio for every mix. I'm super hands-on, so I've heard people out there be like, what takes them so long to mix? Don't you just send off a mix? And yeah, normally bands do that, but I'm annoying.
Yeah.
So I have to be like over our engineer's shoulder to being like, turn this up, turn it down again, turn it up again. Can we A-B that? Scrap it all.
Even
Delete it.
Even this one, you literally were like, I have 10 minutes. I need to know your mix notes on this new mix right now. We need to finish this right now. And I think it was like 11 minutes later, I was like, I think the hi-hat's too loud.
Yeah.
And you were like, ah!
Oh, that was a frustrating note. The hi-hat's just as loud as Andrew's notes initially were.
Yeah.
But the master's a little bit better, so it's not as noticeable. So then we finished the mix that night. We were in the studio for 12 hours. We finished the mix, and then Jeremy was like, everything sounded good, man? You happy with everything? I was like, well, I still have one vocal part I haven't recorded. And he was just like, what? And I was like, yeah, I've told this to you like 5 times today, but like, I had no take for it. I had no idea what I wanted to do for it. So I was just waiting to have a full mix before I even had to go and do it. And so that was just the off with his head, man, off with his head, man. Why don't you remember my name? I guess he does. And it was record while I'm just like, how about this? Off with his head, man, off with his head, man. Why don't you remember my name? Oh, I guess he does. And then him being like, that sucked, do it again, you know? Like, and so 5 hours later, we got we got what you heard. Because all that is very negative. That's like a super negative outlook. And I don't want to bum anybody out that likes the song, because I know that we can come off self-deprecating. We're just super self-aware. And I think all the ideas are cool. I'm just still stuck in the anxiety of the creation of the song. I've had a lot of people that I've shown the song to be like, hey, it's very cool. Relax. But I'm like, for me, I don't even know how I feel about it yet, you know? So hopefully people like it. Even if I had chosen to cover this song after week 5 of trying to put the cover together, I would have been like, there's no way. Thank you to Captain Kelton and Chris for
setting our entire podcast schedule back.
Setting our entire podcast schedule back, making me go and get like saline drips and like that because I was going to pass out constantly.
Speaking of passing out constantly, Buttons, how do you feel about the drums in this song?
God. It's like deviating from the original. Obviously, we bear ghosted it in a fashion, but I have a feeling that a lot of drummers are just going to be like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, I want to preface that. I'm obviously poking fun. That is a self-deprecating note. But Ryan has been the one that's been arranging all of these covers, and a lot of it is because he is the best at it. We also have been on a time crunch, and we don't have time to meet a lot as a 3-piece. And when we do, we've been prepping for the tour. So, like I said, like after practice one day, we were just bouncing ideas off of each other, and that's about as far as our input went into this one. So Ryan was the one pulling his hair out about this. And when he
you came into before practice, hey, can you guys jam this out with me real quick?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I hope it helped.
It did help. It taught me exactly what not to do.
But
No, that's actually a joke. That was the riff. I was like, this riff fucking sucks if you're not Radiohead. What the How do they do it with the simplest drum beat, no build up to it or whatever? It's because they're not trying to be like heavy. They're heavy in a completely different way. That's what I mean is so punk rock about them. Is it's almost just like, you, do you not think this is heavy? I don't give a
Spot on impression.
Right,
of Tom
dude,
York.
I'm good. I'm good at it. Doing the riff with you, I was just like, oh no, the riff jams, and I recorded.
Remember what I played first?
Yes. Oh, Buttons did like a straight double time punk beat at first.
Oh my
And it actually
God,
was
dude.
really cool.
It was. It just
The stuff you did with all the ghost house arrangement is honestly really impressive. And
Thank you.
people aren't going to hear the original bossa nova part that you wrote, but that was cool. But you were like, oh, we lost this whole motif, and you brought it back and rearranged the whole thing to kind of meld back into that ghost house theme, and that is amazing.
It's very Bear Ghosty. I especially noticed in the chorus part, like just the notes that were going on in there. I was like, this is really cool. Like,
Thank
this
you.
is rad.
There's the expression 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I know this doesn't make any mathematical sense, but it constantly felt like I was like taking 10 steps forward and then like walking a mile backwards. And that can't happen because then you'd never get to the end.
Yeah.
But in my case, the end was actually 10 miles backwards. So it worked out fine.
Oh, there it is.
I just had to turn around.
But no, there are a lot of original ideas in this version that are so away from what this song presents. Because when you go to cover a song, you're like, oh, I can take this and this and this and kind of rebuild it with that. This was a complete deconstruction and rebuilding. And the stuff that came about in the arrangement is wild to me. And I love listening to it for a completely different reason than I love listening to the original song.
It does give you a reason to listen to it instead of the original song.
Yes.
Are you a proud owner of the Who Not You owl repellent, but having difficulty getting those dangerous owls and other birds of prey in your crosshairs? Hey there, Patriots. Bob Barr back again to tell you we've all been there. Eager to defend our family from the pesky owls, but they're too busy minding their own business in a tree. Too far away to see with the naked eye, and you just know they're waiting to swoop in and give food and water to folks waiting in line at the ballot box. We've got you covered. Introducing the Who Not You aim enhancing attachment. Swoop, there it is. Just fasten swoop, there it is, to the top of your Who Not You owl repellent. And skazoom! Now you can protect your family and Second Amendment rights from owls hundreds of football fields away.
Swoop, there it is. Now available in night vision.
All right, that's enough of that. I was thinking about me trying to do the vocals of this song in my style and what that even means. And then I was thinking about Andrew's bass playing and Buttons' your drumming and stuff like that. And I was just kind of wondering, like, who do you guys think your sound comes from the most? Like, if you had to pick like 3 artists, what's the soup?
Well, I would say Dave Grohl, his solid chops. His playing is so simple, but he has like a power to it, you know? And that's probably mostly the recording process. I'd say chops-wise, Neil Peart, because all of his fills are just tasteful and not... It's like the borderline of overplaying and playing into the song. And then my third one, I would say maybe Danny Carey, because he's just... That guy's so creative, man.
From Tool.
Yeah. And
Every time I hear somebody say his name, I think of Dana Carvey.
who's also a drummer.
Dude, I'm going to guess for you.
Mm-hmm.
The bass player from Muse that I can never remember his name, and then the bass player for Rage Against the Machine.
That's 2 of them. I don't need to talk on this podcast.
Oh, sorry. Rewind the tape and let's let Do start over again.
Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine, and the guy from Muse, who I also always forget his name. Why do I always forget his name? Chris Wolstenholme.
Why did I say Donovan?
Um,
Are you going to say Sam Rivers?
I wasn't, but that's actually a good.
Okay, wipe it from your memory. Who were you going to say?
I don't know who the third one is. The way that I write and the way that I play is not either of those guys.
No, oh, for sure. That's the hard thing about a question like this is because everybody kind of wants to be like, well, no, I got my own thing, you know?
Yeah.
And me too. So much of your own thing is kind of derived from being like, oh man, like I really like the way this person does these kinds of things. I'm going to take that and blend it with this. And
Yeah.
we all kind of get our chops from other people. I mean, not that nobody is coming up with things on their own, but you know, everybody starts somewhere. So I don't feel like mine is as interesting. Definitely number 1 in the soup would be Matthew Bellamy from Muse on those first 4 records, especially because like when I really got into Muse, it was after this aforementioned metal phase. Blossoming out of that, coming into hearing Matthew Bellamy, who wrote like these melodic but heavy riffs that weren't just about being like low tuned and being. It made me realize that a lot of what I liked about metal were like the scales that were being used and the note choices that were being used. And so for him to do that and then to have these beautiful vocals over it. I know we're not talking about vocally, we're just talking about guitar wise. It changed me overnight. I would say that he's probably the biggest influence on the way that I write since then. And then it's going to be weird that I said that and then I'm going to go to this, but like there are reasons this isn't the same, but like Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit. I know that's a controversial take because it's Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, but Limp Bizkit is what made me decide that I wanted to be in a rock band, you know, because I'd already started wanting to be a musician. I'd been playing piano and stuff like that. But then I got into Limp Bizkit in like the 6th grade. So with Wes Borland, it's a lot of it is about note choices, about groove. But when I'm thinking about Limp Bizkit specifically, it's his build up from a bridge into a bridge riff. That has been such a massive influence on me in the way that I write. I always feel like my bridges need to take you somewhere. It is so common for a bridge to just kind of like fall backwards and not do anything, then the chorus comes back in. And I'm not at all saying Wes Borland was the first one to do this, but it's like I just always loved his bridge riffs and the way that he would build up to something and then give you a cool riff. That's one side of the coin. Also, as a massive Wes Borland fan, when I was in the 7th grade, I got into his side project band, Big Dumbface. And that is such another huge part of my music identity because that was all like the gimp rock of it all. It was like just goofy songs and just hearing like a guitar player do all this stuff that like never would have been featured on the radio. And there are 3 metal songs on that record, going from a song like Burgelweist, which is so heavy, and then go right into Duke Lion, which is like this. He's the son of man, a god and lion. He's the one that keeps the good from dying. Like that was so influential to me. And it just gave me this goofy sensibility. And I thought it was so fun for so long to do really funny verses with like really heavy choruses. And then eventually my music taste shifted to being like, well, is this stuff really funny? Or is it just in a genre that I don't listen to? You know? And so then I was like listening to other genres and being like, no, this is actually just awesome. And what about like that you can make all of these into a fun, interesting soup. So I don't really know that I have a third guitarist though. You could say Darren Malakian from System of a Down, but like for only the same reasons as Wes.
Yeah.
You know? I hope Tom York never listens to this podcast because we just like we're like, yeah, Radiohead's fine. And then I'm like, but Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, good riff writer. He might go whiff. And then vocally, I literally think that my voice is an exact mix of like Matthew Bellamy, Taylor Hanson from Hanson, and Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20. Like, those are like the 3 artists that...
you help me, I'm Brand.
Yeah, exactly. You sounded like you were doing the guy from Creed. That's my little sauce there.
How about you, Tigbot? Who are your top 3 favorite computers?
I'd probably say
Mac iOS.
HAL.
That didn't make any sense.
HAL is probably number 1.
Nice.
Ooh boy, like the old Macs that have the colored backs. Do you remember those?
Oh, of course I do.
They had a handle like on the casing.
Yeah. Just to make it portable. And then me.
I like a little bit of self-love. Hasn't been enough self-love on this episode. All right. Anybody have anything else to say about Paranoid Android? Paranoid Harry? I don't need anybody in the YouTube.
Wow.
I don't need
anybody.
Everybody can go f themselves. Am I right? Am I right? Anyways, so what I was trying to say is I don't need anybody on the motherfucking YouTube comments being like,
Ryan should really be lighter on himself. He doesn't need to be so self-deprecating.
This is how we are. Deal with it.
This is how we write music that'll blow your fucking off. Nobody needs to go on YouTube and be like, guys, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, we know what we put out. We think we like it. And if you don't like it, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. We still have the money. So
that we spent.
We spent it on.
We spent it.
Yeah.
Tigbot,
Yes.
let's scrape those memory pops and see if you got any Discord questions.
Okay.
Scrape the memory pops.
Speaking of scraping, I think we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And
Nobody's asking questions still? You should go on there and be like, do you guys have any good questions?
All right, everybody, cheesening number 2.
No.
Is there any reason Vulture is Jiminy's cap-off song?
Yes.
All right, and there you've heard it from the source.
See ya.
In most of my favorite albums, the last song is always melancholic. Even for movies, I tend to like an ending that leaves me being like, what? And we're such a happy-go-hanky band. Yeah, we're such a happy-go-hanky band that it just doesn't...
Doubles down on the...
Yep. Nope, we're doing happy-go-hanky.
That's a thing now.
It kind of felt like, well, where are we going to put this? In the middle of the fucking
Yeah,
album,
like,
you know?
In between barbecue and rivers, like
Yeah, it's going to go Peas and Love, then Vulture.
it would have been so dumb.
I think it works the best. It's the best place for a rug pull. Do you
Yeah.
not like it, person who asked that question?
I asked it.
Yeah, but who asked it on the Discord? Should we give him a call? Who was it? What's their name?
I don't have that information. I just have a question.
Was it Captain Kelton?
I do completely agree with albums ending in a...
It's the best.
Yeah, they end up being the songs I listen to the most.
Yeah, me too. We have a lot of Vulture lovers out there, like people who'd be like, that song meant so much to me. It's like the best song on the record.
Oh, look, that's a turkey one.
Yeah, totally.
We'll have more to say about that.
On Vulture. Was there anything funny in this episode?
I don't know.
We fed my son dinner before we came here. He doesn't like...
all four.
We all four of us fed my son dinner. And so we all laughed together. We're trying to get him to eat vegetables. And
Gross.
yeah, it's a slow process. At first, we're just letting him play with the vegetables, and then it's like, feel them. You know what I mean? This is all stuff that was supposed to happen when he was a baby that we skipped. So now we're like trying to treat him like a baby with these things. But we're like, can you feel the broccoli? He's like, sure. So he picks up the broccoli and we're like, what does it feel like? So he's like pushing the leafy part. He's like, this part feels soft. He turned around and he goes, and this part feels gross. It was awesome.
My parents used to get me to eat broccoli because I wanted to be a dinosaur.
Dude, that was the first thing I tried with him because that's how I ate broccoli too, was by...
How does that not work?
I don't know.
I still think that's cool.
This has been Bear Ghost Invents the podcast. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. We love you. It's been great meeting you out there on the road. We've loved every second of it. We definitely didn't record this before we left. This greeting specifically goes out to you.
Why are you winking so much?
What, could you hear it? We'll see you guys all later. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Next week, we'll be talking about the Mario cliche from Jiminy. We will see you then.